Good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hey y'all, what's up? It is MCM and you are listening to You're Probably Right podcast. And yeah, today was an interesting day in my other part of life. I already cracked this can, so you guys are going to get the full effect of it. But you're going to get that pour. Yeah, I'm drinking my favorite Canada Dry. I don't know why it's my favorite. Maybe it's because I'm old. I can't really figure it out. Let me get a taste. Brings me back to my childhood. Whenever I was sick, my mom would pour a Canada Dry ginger ale, and she would pour it and be warm, and she'd tell me to drink it while all the bubbles were still fizzing, kind of like an Alka-Seltzer kind of thing. And it used to help, even if it's just psychologically, it helped because mom said that it would help, right? Anyhow, as I said, welcome to You're Probably Right. You're welcome at my house anytime. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Maybe something that I used to do more of. I'm going to go through a little bit of, how is it best to put it? I'm going to talk about the black situation in the Greater Toronto area. And the good thing about this thing is I'm going to add my 2 cents as far as my experience growing up black in the GTA area. To be frank, even though I'm not frank, let's see all the places I've lived in Toronto. I've lived East York, North York, Scarborough, specifically Malvern, specifically Victoria Park and Ellesmere, just below that. Lived in Markham. I've lived in Richmond Hill, close to Buttonville Airport. I've lived in Ajax and Port Union, in the Scarborough area, like by the lake. Where else? That's about all I can think of right now. But the point is, I've been around and I've lived in Toronto, the Greater Toronto area, all my life, all of my 50 years. I know I sound young and relatively vibrant, I suppose. So this episode is really for people who are wondering about the black situation in Toronto, in Canada, growing up in a West Indian family, specifically Jamaican, and my experience, and also some of the stats from around the world. Not really that much around the world, but around the world, like the where is it? I was gonna talk about something specific, and I think I might have lost it. So let's see. Oh, there's also the 2022 Index of Economic Freedom. I wanted to see where my country was or is. And that's pretty interesting. You know what sparked this on was I watched an interview today with Jordan Peterson, and he was talking to a woman who is an entrepreneur out of Senegal, and I'm gonna look for it here, but the problem is, even if I find it, the chances of me being able to pronounce that woman's name. Let's see if I could find it here quickly. Yeah, it's not there. Put it in. It's funny how you type things in Google, and the answers you would never say it out loud. But let's see if it's gonna. Daggone it! It's not even coming up. What's up with that? I must find it. So you can just kind of talk amongst yourselves while I look for this. I must find this woman on here somewhere. I'm subscribed to this dude's channel. Of course, I'm signed out. Who signed me out? Okay, hold on. We just want to get to the channel. There we go. And her name is Maggette Wade. And hopefully that's how she says her name. Anyway, it's Magatte, Wade. Maggette Wade. Anyhow, they were talking about that index a little bit there, so I was really interested in the economic freedom and wondering where we stand. And this was all spurred on also by a situation I had today at my daytime job. Watching how people interact with each other and how they think that it's okay to interact with you. Now, I work around a lot of young acting, vibrant individuals, and I don't work with them, but I work around them. And what I really realized today is I'm working in the wrong area of the company. I'm working around the wrong people. I'm like, maybe not around the wrong people. I mean, maybe they do need people like me, but today was an extra special introvert day for myself. I had people jumping into my space to talk to me and to try to interact in certain ways that I only personally interact that way with people that I know like very well. And maybe other people, some of you listeners here listening to me will understand what I'm saying is that it's horrible. There's no better way to put it than somebody you don't know asking or almost demanding you explain exactly what it is you do for the company at your level, and you don't know them at all. And you almost feel like you're asked to do an impromptu presentation of who you are and what you do, but I don't know you. So that makes it so uncomfortable. Not to mention I had other things that I needed to do within that 10 minutes. And this person was just all over up in my grill. I was like, what the deal? I don't need this. And just listening to the interactions while I was quietly working away, listening to my my instrumental tunes and just trying to get some computer work done, and hearing the interactions going on behind me, I was like, man, I'm in the wrong place, and I could never work with those people. Not because I have anything against them, but I'm so closed off that I just wouldn't fit, and it'd be the whole time people trying to pull me out of my shell and me trying to curl back into my shell and then bursting out at the wrong times. Like, that's the one thing I've recognized within myself as an introvert, is that I end up trying to accommodate to be more of an extrovert, and generally what happens is when I put too much effort into it, I end up doing it at the wrong times, and it just becomes awkward. It just doesn't feel right. I also recognize the power struggle that goes on within an organization, especially a big, wealthy organization or a government-backed organization. The people they pick to be your boss isn't necessarily the person you'd pick to be your boss. But that's a whole nother story. So, should I start big and go small? Why not? Since I brought it up. Okay, so the 2022 Index of Economic Freedom, I wanted to know, obviously, where does my country stand? Because this one was talking about Senegal, and she brought up something that I already knew, funny enough. She talked about how most of the black doctors in the United States are from Nigeria. And it's funny because that was very evident to me as exactly what was happening as far as education is concerned in North America, in Canada, or let's say in Ontario even, when it comes to black people. I secretly knew that, secretly is a dumb thing to say, that the people who were prospering were not from Jamaica. And not to say that no Jamaicans have ever prospered or are prospering. It's not true. But it's funny how it goes. I mean, Jamaicans are known for the culture. But what culture? Dance hall culture. They're known for the oxtails and patties and reggae music. You know, everybody knows Bob Marley, and to what level they're going to say that he's the quintessential Jamaican. That's a whole nother story. Some Jamaicans love Bob Marley, and a lot of people around the world love Bob Marley, and then there's a lot of Jamaican people who don't rate the Marley family whatsoever. I'm sure some out of hate, some out of stories and things that they've heard and seen. And it goes on and on. But it's just so... Jamaicans are all spread all over this world. And, you know, let me say that also we're known for its fast sprinters. And no, not every Jamaican is fast. But on average, if you had a class of, say, 20, 25, and you had, let's say, a couple Jamaicans, a couple West Indians, a couple black people, period, inside that class, and a few different cultures besides blacks, chances are we're going to be up at the front of the race. If there was a 100-meter race, that's just the way it is. But, you know, it kind of, you know, you're brought up in this world where you're thinking that, you know, that's all we do. We cook food, we play music, and we run fast and dance. And it's just a poor way of looking at a country. Even when you go back and you visit, or when I visited Jamaica, just realize that most of my family's moved out. The lands that we've had or supposedly owned, they came up with these different rules. As if you own the land and you haven't paid your taxes in a few years because you're abroad, somebody could just go sit on the land and take it over, pay the taxes, and it's their land. So I don't know how much that is really a good thing, and I don't know how much that's really a bad thing, but all I know is a lot of Jamaican Canadian kids like myself basically lost out on our inheritance that our parents, our grandparents worked their backsides off for, literally. And why, you say? Why didn't we go back? Well, for instance, in my case, my father got sick, and my father was substantially older than myself, or I wasn't old enough to take over anything that was going on in that country, and he didn't think he was going to get sick when he did. And a lot of the stuff just went unpaid because we just weren't there. And at the time, sadly, a lot of people were scared to go back and forth to Jamaica, and they certainly weren't sending their little kids back in the 80s to go back and try to deal with land, because literally they were killing people for over land and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, a lot of people here just figured, you know, they could probably make a better life of it, and they wouldn't have to worry about that land. They didn't want to send their kids back to get killed over land. I'm sure my father didn't. But in hindsight, I wonder how much of it was really a plan, and whose idea that was to say, okay, we're just going to take everybody's land. Even if you have family members over here and they obviously can't afford to pay everybody's taxes, and why should they? Because you're gone abroad, you've gone to foreign, as they call it. So what ends up happening is you get up old enough to say you want some of your land, and it's like, no, sorry, this person owns your land now because your father didn't pay the taxes. So you lose. So the ass whoopings that your grandfather's grandfather, or just your grandfather and your great grandfather, in my case, took over lands, and the hard sweat, back-breaking labor that my father and my grandfather and my great-grandfather put down, and mothers, of course, and grandmothers and great-grandmothers put down in that country, came up to naught, except for the fact that we got out of the country. It pisses me off because I know there was some type of systematic way of weaseling people out of their land. And I know it wasn't just people, you know, island black people who got the lands. I know it's other people, because now when you go back to Jamaica, let's say you go on a resort or you go to stores on the streets, it's not only owned by your native Jamaican people, it's owned by Sri Lankans, it's owned by Chinese, it's owned by white people. And then there's these gated communities that the regular black people can't even go to unless they're cleaning up somebody's house, or they're building infrastructure, or working for somebody, some American or white man, or some other person from somewhere else. They're slowly becoming slaves in their own country again. And, you know, when I brought up Nigeria, you know, the funny thing was, being straight up in Ontario, I would say from late 80s to to early 2000s, what a lot of people who were from Nigeria were known for is all the fraud, the different types of frauds that they are pulling on, the scams they're pulling over here and being deported. And meanwhile, I mean, they're being tricky, smart, and some of them would get away with a lot of stuff. Meanwhile, my people were over here getting violent over here and in Jamaica too. They kept broadcasting it and bringing up as a threat in society. It got so bad that they just stopped letting Jamaicans come to Toronto. So if you're a person who lives in the GTA, you probably know, unless you live in little small pockets in certain areas, you probably can't tell the last time you heard somebody under the age of 20 with a straight up proper Jamaican accent. Now, not the people who were over here since they were little kids or were brought up like me in Jamaican homes, who can speak a level of patois, the Jamaican dialect, just the real. You're not hearing the real. I am not hearing the real, you know, unless it's on the phone, or if you go and visit, you're hearing the proper Jamaican accent, because we're not over here anymore. And, what really hit it home for me was last year. A person close to me was graduating from, and I want to get this right. I know it's called Metro something. Anyhow, it was the old Ryerson University, but it's now called the Toronto Metropolitan University. And it was, I was at the person's graduation. It was in the humanities, and there was close to or over 100 graduates. And one thing that really, really, really hit home for me was to realize that, yes, there were black people who were graduating, and they had the pictures of the people, and they had their names as they called them out. And what I realized, actually, did they call the names? I believe they called the names. And I realized that not that West Indian black people don't give their kids African names, but generally the majority who are up here have those old slave names that their forefathers were given from their slave owners, their masters. And I noticed a lot of African names, or maybe it's even Africans, Jamaicans, or have the African names. But I could realize, or looking at the people, and you have to judge it a little bit, I guess. But a lot of the people who were graduating were Africans, and I hardly saw people who looked like they were West Indian black graduating from university with a degree. And it's kind of sad. I look at myself and I say, what could I be doing better than I'm doing right now? And for me, realizing that nature versus nurture, upbringing, formative years, experiences, bullying, crappy teachers, bad work ethic as far as school is concerned, and I really can't see myself moving that much farther up the ladder as far as like in a corporate sense, as far as a job is concerned. I could see a lot of lateral movement possibly. And the funny is I don't make that crazy cash that somebody would probably think I do, just looking at how I carry myself or what job I'm actually doing. And I look and say, okay, listening to that interview with Jordan Peterson today, with Magat Wade, I realized that, and I'm happy that she brought it up. When people used to bring up, it's poor nutrition why black kids can't succeed in school, or it's it's black people are just not as smart as the other cultures and stuff like that. And you realize that not only is it not true, but it's a huge lie. And for countries like those African countries that are held back and the West Indian countries that are held back, it's the market. As she was talking about how to get certain products in the country that needed to be like she has that company called Skin is Skin. And for her to bring certain products from Senegal or wherever into the States or whatever it is, for them to be legally, for the products to be legally sold in certain countries, they had to have this, insert that in it. And what ended up happening is the way that they hold back, say, a black entrepreneur from those countries is they make sure that certain ingredients are sold at an astronomical price, so that by the time you put together your product, it would be very, very, very difficult for you to have a share of the market or to be competitive with your prices at all. It's probably just a blessing that her products are very, very good, and somehow she got into a store like Whole Foods that she's able to prosper, and she speaks about being a entrepreneur before this and how she was already making six figures at 25. I know very few, but I mean, she's an extraordinary person already, you can tell. But when I bring this back to, say, the GTA in Toronto, when I heard colleagues of mine today talking about kids, black kids, and the different opportunities that they're trying to provide for these students, and the different clubs, I wonder where all the people are who were able to succeed out of the West Indian community. Like, why aren't they giving back? This will never, I know why they're not giving back, but I mean, I'm just, it's just kind of me, and I'm here talking to you. And it all just seems so simple, but you'd rather make it hard. I think Lauryn Hill said that. You take a guy like Drake. Now, I understand he's not West Indian, but I also realize a lot of the guys that he had around him they are West Indian. And there has to be some influence at some level. I mean, it's all over his music for the most part. If it wasn't the hip hop of the Americas, it was the West Indian reggae vibes and soca vibes that he would sing to and croon to. He has these guys around him. I'm like, buddy, instead of making a huge mansion worth I don't know how many $1 million, right? Let's look. And I mean, not to say that anybody's gonna be able to know it for sure, but and you're not trying to watch anybody else's pockets, but supposedly his YOLO estate is on sale. Oh, here we go. Oh, that was in March. It was $14.8 million, or the house. That was a jaw-dropping mansion. Apparently, it's like $100,000 now. If it's saying it's $100 million for his house. Is there anybody who needs to live in $100 million house in Toronto? For real? Are you? Okay. Now I'm sure they brought it up. It probably was 75 million. You know what I mean? But let's just stay with that number because these people love to play. So even if, literally, if he wanted to come out and say, look, my house isn't in a $100 million house, but because it looks like a good, it's a good brag, not very humble at all. But if it was 86 million or 76 million or 67 million or whatever it was, the bottom line is they have it at 100 and nobody corrected anybody. Nobody. So let's just say his house is $100 million, right? Now, if you do live in the inner city of Toronto or any of the supposed bad neighborhoods, how far that type of money could have gone. Okay, for instance, let's look at all the bad, so-called bad neighborhoods of Toronto. Tops they come up with is Regent Park. Now, if you know Regent Park, then you also know that it is literally being gentrified as we speak. I'm not sure if it's over yet, but there was a police station right in the middle of Regent Park. They moved that out. People got shot, people got stabbed, people sold drugs, and they started ripping down old buildings and building townhouses and gentrifying the whole area. Nice. It's also very, very close to the Eaton Center downtown Toronto, so I'm sure they wanted that nice land back. There's St. Jamestown, Flemington Park, Moss Park, Weston, lots of black people down there. The Bay Street corridor, it's pretty rough down there. The beaches, Little Portugal, Forest Hills South, Casa Loma, the Annex, Roncesvalles, I don't even know how you even say that, but Humber and Runnymede in the Humber area, Humbermead, whatever, Riverdale, Leslieville, and the point is, though, what I'm saying is there's a lot of West Indian black people living in those neighborhoods. Now, I'm not saying there's not a lot of Somalis and a lot of Nigerians and other, West Indian countries and African countries mixed in, but there are an overwhelming number of, for instance, Jamaican people living in those areas. And they go to the schools that are notoriously bad as well. And yes, you get an athlete here or there, you get a graduate who excels here or there, but for the most part, you're lucky if some of these kids are even graduating high school. And if they graduate high school, then they're going to grab some loan and end up at one of the colleges and do some mid-level nominal job that probably makes them anywhere between $40,000 and $55,000 if they're blessed at this day and age in 2020. And there's just so many things that go along with that. There's these people who make the upper parts of that money who end up having to support family members who are not making decent amounts of money. It's the inflation that's going on across everywhere. Apparently, that you have multi-generational homes. You got grandma, you got mom, dad, kids. You got all kinds of bad situations, and I just don't see a way out from my people, my section of people, my African diaspora, or however you want to look at it, my Jamaicans out of that diaspora. And I believe we have been left behind. It's sad. Luckily, I look at this world as a stepping stone. I look at this world as a place I have to stop before I get to heaven. As a Christian, I can look and I can take myself away and realize that, life's hard. I look at my life and try to see where is it that I really get persecuted for Christ, or where do I suffer as a Christian because of Christian principles and values and because of Christ, and not because of bad attitude and hood music and stereotypes and the color of my skin, and and the beat goes on and on and on. So I desire to be persecuted for the right things. But when you're just getting persecuted for nonsense and you're seeing it right in front of your eyes, that, our people are not prospering. Yeah, the Africans are prospering, and I know that some people are just lumping us all in together because they can't tell the difference between somebody from Nigeria and somebody from the West Indies, not realizing that so much of the West Indies is totally mixed with black, white, indigenous, Indian, and Chinese, and most of us from those countries have some of those things, not just one, in our families. And mine is definitely no different. But the value of things just seems so off for my people. I'm happy to see those who were left back, lucky enough, although some people say they're the ones who sold my ancestors to the colonizers, were the other Africans. I don't know how much truth is in it. I'm sure there's some truth in that, but even speaking or even listening to her speak today, I could hear it's like, people fought against each other, people colonized each other, people did this and that to each other. It's the history of the world, and all cultures have been disadvantaging each other and fighting amongst themselves for long periods of time, and enslaving others for long periods of time. And the reason why we talk about the black situation is because we are just the latest that happened to, and that could very well be true. I've heard Thomas Sowell speak about stuff like that often, but it's almost like there's a hatred, a disdain, there's a dismissiveness about when I hear about certain people talking about colonization and slavery, the Atlantic slave trade. It's like a bad word. And I can honestly tell you, relating to some of the black people from other countries, some African countries, as a matter of fact, and sometimes other West Indian countries, it's like they can smell you're Jamaican. There's an attitude, there's a distancing. It's like I'm just telling you the way I feel. It's like sometimes it's like they feel like they want everybody to know that, yeah, those are the reggae people over there. We are the Africans. We are the people who stayed in our country and did not become anyone's slaves and came over to North America of our own volition. And we are making a name for ourselves, and we are passing those who came up, say, from the West Indies, and we are going to make those people our employees because we were on another level. That's how it feels for me anyway. And this has a lot to do with the conversations that I've also had from people from the so-called black community. And I don't honestly know how it gets any better, because I look at those areas and I know people from those areas, and many of them are working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to raise a family singly, or they're working no jobs and they're trying to raise a family with 3, 4, 5 kids. That doesn't work. I mean, it works, but it's difficult. Anyhow, I didn't come on this thing today with any answers. But to say that I'm worried about my West Indian black people would be an understatement. And I know some are prospering, but I know that there's a lot that are not prospering at all. And it's definitely not a competition between West Indian blacks and African blacks. But I'm just not seeing the same level of success at all. And it's funny, you know, we can call it urban music, black music, Jamaican music, hip hop, where there are a lot of West Indian people mixed in throughout that culture and even starting that culture. Like I think African Bambaataa and Heavy D and a lot of other people are kind of mixed within there that are from the West Indies or Jamaica, and I guess the West Indies, like what's her name, Nicki Minaj, I think she's Trinidadian. Rihanna is Bajan and Guyanese, but and there's others. So sorry if I didn't call out your your people, but are these people giving back? And it's funny because that type of music is like the rock of the 80s, except now music is not as lucrative at all, not even close. It's not as lucrative as it was back in those days. They figured out a way by changing the different devices that you play music on. The easier it's to get it because it's in this cloud system, and the music is a lot cheaper. It's turned out a lot quicker. You don't need a full studio to put out music and get famous with it. And so there's a lot more, let's say, black musicians, even Canada, United States, West Indies, wherever, but it's not as lucrative. So as you've seen in the news, you have these so-called rappers and whatever and reggae artists doing other things outside of their art and getting themselves locked up for years. Vibes Cartel, the list goes on and on and on. So let's just say entertainment was our way out. I mean, you can't say it's sprinting. Okay, yeah, we have Usain Bolt, we used to have Ben Johnson, and we used to have Asaf Paul and a few other smaller but very fast other sprinters, and like Shelly Ann Fraser and there was a Shelly Ann Price. I can't remember, but the point is that that's a young man's game. Again, music has obviously a lot more longevity, but yeah, as far as sports are concerned, you can only do it for so long. But you know, thinking about back to Drake, I'm thinking, I know he's not West Indian, but he is half black, and it's like, are you telling me you couldn't have, like a $40 million house couldn't have sufficed for you, and you couldn't have spent the other $60 million on community centers and programs for black inner city youth in Toronto to actually really make a difference, or put a bunch of black kids through school in Toronto instead of, you know, doing that video called God's Plan, which you probably wrote off as a tax break anyways. And I'm not judging it in the sense that I'm just wondering, why can't, when we make it out of the hood, like this woman was speaking about how she felt about making six figures at 25 years old, and she had her epiphany, or she had her experience where she realized that she needed to give back to her country, that she needed to give back to her continent, not even her country, not even her city, not even, you know, her village. She literally said she had to give back to her continent. Now, I don't know how much of this is just because she's trying to, as we say, big up herself and bring up her company and her movement. And I'm sure there was a lot of political stuff, jargon mixed throughout, where it might have been this way or that way. But the point is that she's doing something, and she did turn around and help out, you know. I never understood how people can be caught in a well, and then somebody throws a rope down, right? Or somebody finds a way out, and then I never understood why those people who make their way out don't turn around and help other people out as well. And I'm not trying to pick on Drake or anything like that. It's just very disheartening. And I guess with all the microplastics and temperature change, that these are small issues, I suppose. But what I've learned today is I need a new job. Anyhow, I just figured I would just bend your ear and ramble on for a bit. Hopefully it didn't bother you too much. This is MCM, and I know there is no proper conclusion to this conversation, but it's just things. Hopefully it's a conversation starter for you and your friends or your family member or your significant other or spouse or whatever, to really argue these facts. Maybe I'm totally off and you're probably right. But it's just sad to see what's happened too. Especially because the bigger country, and the smaller island people don't like to be called small island people, but I see a lot of whatlessness around, and it's sad. And I see a lot of depression around my culture. I see a lot of wasted time and money, throwing money into things like Jordans, Air Jordans, throwing money into Balenciaga, and supposedly Rolex is a good investment now. Throwing a lot of money into Mercedes and rims and having their cars look all shiny and the newest fashions, and realizing that all those things are vanity of vanities. But somehow, somewhere, somebody said, you gotta look the part. And in a lot of ways, my people took that to another level. And then I think about all of the wasted $249 shoes that so many guys have that just sit there. Waste. Anyhow. Thanks for listening. This is You're Probably Right. I'm MCM. Take care. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.